Hey, fifth graders, we're ready to read some more out of The Invention of Hugo Cabret. Today we're going to be starting on chapter 4, which is called The Invention of Dreams. Hugo was still nervous about leaving the station, but he took a deep breath and headed downstairs to the vast subway system that snaked beneath the city like hidden rivers. A great example of a simile talking about the subway tracks snaking and also being like hidden rivers. Cool descriptive language. Okay, so the pictures are going to help tell the story here, so watch closely. So Hugo does not leave the station often, but he is getting on a subway. Getting off the subway. Notice his hand is still bandaged. So he's coming up out of the subway underground, walking through the city. Okay. Hugo entered the lobby where a small woman sat at a big desk. He asked to use the library, and after looking him up and down in a disapproving manner, she said, "No, no, you're too small and too dirty, and you must be accompanied by an adult," she said. "Goodbye." Hugo just looked at her. He glanced at his hands and his clothes and didn't realize that he hadn't thought about the way he looked in a long time. Hugo knew the woman was being unfair, but he didn't know what to do about it. He was trying to figure out what to say when he thought he heard his name being called. "Hugo? Is that you?" Okay, so remember Isabel's friend, Atine, with the eye patch? "Atine!" Hugo ran to him. "What are you doing here?" "I was just about to ask you the same thing." The small woman at the desk looked at Atine and said, "You know this filthy child?" "Madame Memoire, this is my friend Hugo." She pushed her black-rimmed glasses to the top of her nose and answered the phone, which had just rung. "Sorry about your job at the movie theater," Hugo said. "It worked out well, actually. When I was fired, I had just started classes here, and they were able to give me some work in the offices. I'm studying to be a cameraman." By the way, if you look closely at the building that Hugo was going into, it's in French because remember the setting of this book is in Paris, France, but it's basically Académie de Cinéma France. So it's like saying the Academy of Cinema or movies in France. So Atine is saying he just got a job at the Film Academy. Hugo glanced at Atine's eye patch, and Atine smiled. "Having an eye patch actually makes it easier to look through the camera. I don't have to close one eye like everyone else." Atine tapped his eye patch and said, "Now tell me, what in the world brings you here?" "I need to find something in the library. Can you help me?" "Follow me," said Atine. Hugo didn't look at Madame Menoir, but he was very happy to walk by her as they headed to the library. The library was on the second floor. It was clean and orderly, with rows of perfectly placed shelves, which seemed untouchable. In the center of the room was a large painting that caught Hugo's eye. He didn't know what it meant, but he liked it. Kind of cool. Atine helped Hugo navigate the card catalog so he could find the book he needed, and then brought him to the correct shelf. Atine stood on his toes, pulled the book off the shelf, and handed it to Hugo, who sat right where he was and opened it. Atine sat down next to him. "You know, one of my teachers wrote that book. Will you tell me what you need it for now?" But Hugo couldn't talk. The book was called The Invention of Dreams, the story of the first movies ever made. It was written by René Tabard a year earlier in 1930. Hugo opened to the beginning of the book and read. Now notice that this text is italicized, so this is what the book itself actually says. In 1895, one of the very first films ever shown was called A Train Arrives in the Station, which was nothing more than the title suggests, a train coming into a station. But when the train came speeding toward the screen, the audience screamed and fainted because they thought they were in danger of being run over. No one had ever seen anything like it before. Okay, remember how I said this book is a cool mix of, it's a historical fiction book. So there are fictional made up characters, but there are real characters as well. And there are real factual things within this book. So this picture here is a still. It is an image from one of the very first movies called A Train Arrives at the Station. This really was one of the very first movies made. And so it's kind of cool that the book has some of these real things in it. You can see the quality is like really fuzzy, right? We're not into fancy HD color things yet. Hugo flipped through the pages of the book. There were images of men playing cards, people leaving a factory, each one a still from an early movie. Hugo continued turning pages, and then he saw what he had been hoping to find. So think about, this has a lot of meanings, right? Hugo, we know that Hugo's dad talked about seeing this film, but that's also the picture that the automaton drew. So Hugo is clearly looking for some clues here. His father's favorite movie was called A Trip to the Moon. Okay, now he goes back to reading. The filmmaker Georges Méliès began his career as a magician, and he owned a theater of magic in Paris. This connection with magic helped him immediately understand what the new medium of film was capable of. He was among the first to demonstrate that film didn't have to reflect life. He quickly realized that film had the power to capture dreams. Méliès is widely credited with perfecting the substitution trick, which made it possible for things to appear and disappear on screen as if by magic. This changed the face of movies forever. So, Georges Méliès, that would be Isabel's godfather. Okay, and here's a picture. Remember I mentioned Georges Méliès is a real person, and this here is the real Georges Méliès. This is an image from one of the movies that he made. Okay, so he is a real person. Okay, so watch what happens here. So this is a still from a movie, and he snaps his fingers in the movie, and the woman disappears. So it's this connection between magic and film. He was first a magician. A Trip to the Moon, Méliès's most famous film, followed a group of explorers as they went to the moon, fought the moon men, and returned home with a captive to great acclaim. If one day, far in the future, mankind is truly able to fly to the moon, we will have Georges Méliès and the movies to thank for helping us to understand that if our dreams are big enough, anything is possible. Unfortunately, Georges Méliès died sometime after the Great War, and many, if not all, of his films are lost. Died? He's not dead, Hugo said out loud. Who isn't dead? Said a teen who had been reading over Hugo's shoulder. Georges Méliès. He runs a toy booth in the train station. A teen laughed. I'm not kidding, Hugo said, and he's Isabel's godfather. Interesting. By the way, this movie, A Trip to the Moon, along with a lot of Georges Méliès's other films, you can actually search them on YouTube. You can find the entire movie of A Trip to the Moon on YouTube. The films during this time were much shorter. They were not hour and a half, 2-hour films. So you could actually pull that up and you could watch the original film that was made. It was one of the first movies made. It's pretty cool to see. All right, that is where I will stop for today. Thanks for listening, guys.